Hello everybody, Stephanie here. Greetings from my humble abode today. This is why I hesitate for the moment, is because I was coming live to show you. Can you believe this? Like, this is snow. Like, we're getting snow covered up here on the hill. I'm quite perplexed and freezing a bit. So back in I go. So yeah, I was going to come live. I don't know why I feel like I have to be at a different place, except for in my life I'm always somewhere different. And I guess in the beginning, when we started doing the vlogs instead of the blog, it must be nice to be in the sauna, yoga mats. It's quite cold up here. But I was always in a different location, and again, I don't know if it's just because that's the way we started, and I feel like I don't want it to be mundane. But anyway, I've said this 1,000 times in 1,000 different scenarios. Just because you've always done it one way doesn't mean you have to continue. So I don't know why I stressed over that today, because I was like, really wanted to come live from the yoga studio, and I did that the other day on their site, so you know, you kind of missed that. And I planned to come live with you all that day, and I had baseball as a priority, so I had to rush out. But you know what, it comes back to one of those original lessons that I plan and God laughs. And so I've said that for many years. I really need to have that tattooed like here on my forearm, so I can remember that and to take the pressure off, and that it's okay, it is just life, that's the way it goes, and just to roll with it, right? Go with the flow. So greetings to you all. I hope you all are having a great day, and if not, perhaps when we're done here we'll all be a little more essentially enlightened. So you're gonna die in there. Look, Matt, I do not have my glasses on, so you're gonna make me keep squinting. Speaking of which, I guess I could put that on. That way, if anybody does have any questions, that's the beauty of being here in my, this is what we call Gertrude's spot. So for those of you who always wondered why we called the RV Gertrude, it kind of came from that. I've had this couch for way more years than I even care to share with you all. It totally needs replaced. But kids, right? And so not going to do it, because the moment that I do, they're going to spill something, even though they're not supposed to come out of the kitchen with spillable things. But even water stains some things. So anyway, Gertrude's spot. So what a perfect way for me, and why, you know, I overstressed that. We'll see. I'm going to keep on moving. But this is the perfect place for me to come live to you guys today, as it's a wrap up, guys. This is the wrap up. And I'm just going to be completely honest. Didn't expect all the emotions, which, I mean, shocker. That is what I'm in touch with and most readily available to me. I should have known that was going to happen, but for some reason I didn't expect it. And so today's been very bittersweet for me, as it is. Like, this was it. This is day 365. Like, I just, so much. There's just so much that I could go with this and, you know, share with you all about it. And, you know, the biggest thing is, like, I didn't think about was celebrating. So shout out to my sister Kat. Like, thank you so much for today. It was completely coincidental and not planned that she would be doing a little mini workshop with us teacher trainers on family and kids yoga, and that she was in Charleston at our Canal City studio this morning, where I was not in the best place. I mean, I woke up, so many things, and you know, and not being able to put my finger on it at first. I didn't sleep well, and then I woke up, it was, most of you probably have this that live locally, it was freezing cold the next time I woke up, because we had turned the heat off, and then I turned the heat on, and then I woke up again, completely soaked in sweat, and then when I woke up it was winter, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I really had a hard time dragging myself from my cocoon and facing the day. And, you know, it was just another reminder of how the environment No, I was not. I was not me this morning. You're right, Amanda. But just the reminder that, like, when we go from fall, this is so interesting to me, and I'm probably going to process this more later. When we go into fall, from fall into winter, and even from summer to fall, like, we really don't see how much of an impact sunlight has on us. And it seems to be more noticeable to most of us right now as we're going from winter to spring, and we keep getting slung back into winter. And, like, we're feeling it. We're feeling that. And so, like, if I can take this to a different level with all of us right now when we're talking about these seasons, and I'm not talking about Mother Nature's seasons right now, but, like, as we're moving out of this other season and into this new realm, and winter, quote unquote, is holding on with all she's got, right? How can we move on to the next? And why we all feel so frustrated. So wherever you are in that, in your process and in your journey, like, trust that this is part of it, and that regardless of what is holding on, the movement forward is going to occur. And again, it's like kicking and screaming, and we do that a lot. Like, we don't, it's really hard to let go and go with the flow. So many of these, what I'm sharing right now, are lessons that I have learned over this 365 days of yoga. And so, yeah, I know some of you are probably tired of hearing me talk about it, which almost like dampened me from talking about it, but I'm not going to, because when I started the blog, it was an eclectic approach to a hectic world. And if I have learned anything about yoga, it is a very eclectic approach. What most of us have in mind here in the States about yoga has only to do with the asana, the postures, that most of us know, down dog and, cat cow and triangle and all the things that we call them. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, as I was saying the last time. And so really it's just, again, the journey of the self to the self through the self. And so again, I'm sharing these things with you because it's 365 days. And so, like, yes, who would have thought? I would have never have thought. So tomorrow is the anniversary, and I'll say this first. And so today, as I could have blamed my foul mood on all of these other symptoms, because it's really what it was. I mean, whatever. But when I walked into the yoga studio, and I was late walking into the yoga studio because of things outside of my control, and I was frustrated, and, again, weather, lack of sleep, like, I could, continue to list. I knew I was going to my safe space, and I knew when I went in, no matter how negative my energy was, that what was there and who was there and the positivity that they all bring would sustain me and bring me out. And that, guys, is the sense of community that I could just start crying talking about it. And so I'm just going to say that I hope that we all seek, strive, and create. And I did. At first I was like, I don't want to come up there and sit with you guys because I don't want to bring in my negativity. And then I sat back and I did what I know to do, what 365 days of practice has taught me, which is to sit still, breathe. I grabbed my oils out, which, those pre-existed the 365 days of yoga. So again, that toolbox that I'm constantly talking about, pulling out the tools and using them. And within a few moments, I at least felt human, presentable to the public, maybe not to the public, but to my peers, to the people who I consider family. And it was good. And afterwards, I was kind of like in a hurry to get out of there. I'm going too fast, and I didn't write an outline. I was in my notes that I can't access because it's on my phone, and I forget that I can't do two things at one time on the phone. But while I was sitting there and in silence and just sitting in the emotions, and so this is one of the hugest lessons that I have been taught, is that expressing, I'm so getting ahead, but that's okay, it's where we're going. Expressing and repressing emotions do harm. It does harm to ourselves or to others. And so the best practice is to sit in them, not to dwell on the cause, but to sit in them. And just sitting in things has taught me so much about myself and about others and about the inner workings. And really what happens is enlightenment comes from there. So as I was sitting in it, I realized that's why I'm sad, is I feel like this chapter is coming to an end, and now what? Well, it didn't have to. It doesn't have to. It's this year is coming to a close, this 365 days, and look, every day and every lesson is to be celebrated that came from that. And only moving forward, can I put these lessons into practice? Because if I was not sharing this experience with you all, I don't know that I would have taken the time that I have taken this last weekend to process the entire journey and to really see all those things. So it's back to that toolbox again that I've been able to go through, and through other different scenarios and situations that I've been through this year, the lessons and the tools that I've gained from that perhaps got dusty. And so now I can start to look at them fully and put those into practice in this upcoming year. So the year of yoga will continue. You know, and I'm not even going to get into all that, like what I'm going to call it or any of that stuff, except for I'm going to continue to share about it. And I'm committing that to my heart, that this is not any longer something I'm just doing to write about, to give me you know, something to share with you all, like whatever I'm trying to say. I don't want to say a gimmick, because it never was a gimmick, but anyway, it's become more than a practice to me. It is the lifestyle. So there's that. And then I was going to leave right after we finished, and one of the teacher trainers has a class there at noon, and so everybody was, not everybody, but a lot of people were going to stay. And I was like, well, because, you know, I really had a couple things I needed to take care of. But were they pressing? I don't know. And before I could even, like, think about it, I looked at the doorway, and here came a familiar face. And I was like, oh my gosh. And because I don't know her well enough to, I'm anonymous, we'll just keep it anonymity, I said, hey, what are you doing? And, you know, she was like, I don't know. And so anyway, long story short, I started this journey with her. I mean, not with her, like, and we did it together, but we practiced together many times, and cultivated a friendship from that. And, you know, I don't take those crossings of paths lightly, and that was really interesting, because usually I'm very curious to find out why the paths crossed again, except I think I already know that answer. But here she was, and who am I to question? So yes, I'm staying for this practice, because it felt like a very full circle moment, and it was just, again, there can be some bitter, of course there is, like something's ending and something's beginning. And so, you know, and that's what we always say, that sunsets are proof that endings are beautiful. And so, you know, and then the dawn of a new day and so much more to hold, what's to come is like exciting as well. So I said all that to say I stayed for the practice, and I definitely got, thank you, Elizabeth, I got the mind shift that I needed, and got to practice with, like I said, somebody whom I started with, a bunch of somebodies that I have met along the way, you know, many of the teacher trainers. It was just a beautiful moment. And, you know, afterwards, Kat grabbed me and gave me a big hug, and like, she really celebrated this moment with me. And I thought, I just really appreciate that. And the same thing for the community. Like tomorrow we're celebrating the anniversary of my class, and again, you're more than welcome to join us at 8:30 in the morning there in Canal City Studio. But it's just, I don't know, it was just a beautiful moment. She caught a picture, she snuck a picture, and I'm so glad that she did, because after that moment, because today is so crazy hectic, and well, at the time we didn't know baseball was canceled, but I wouldn't have gotten a practice in otherwise, is what I'm saying. And how devastated I would have been had this been the last day of this year, this 365th day, and I practiced, and I could have practiced on my own, of course, but there's just something beautiful about the shared space and energy that's created there. So lovely. I mean, I plan, and God laughed, and what happened was so much beautiful than what my original plan was. And so, I didn't share. Last week I had a little frustration because I strained my tendon in my right elbow, and once we've done a little investigation as to where that came from, I'm pretty sure, because it doesn't hurt in a lot of the practices, one arm balances period. Maybe tweak it a little bit, but so somebody out there might chime in, but I'm pretty sure I was twisting a lid off of something and torn a tendon, because it's anytime I tried to grip with my right hand that I find it to be painful. And so that was, I forget which day it started to cut, and then I had to take a couple days, so I didn't get to go to my regular practice on Friday. And I could have found myself in a downward spiral. Like, we're ending this last week without practice, and then again, one of those very important lessons that I learned along the way, which came in the form of a beautiful lady that, I think her name was Rachel, but I always refer to her as Barbie, because she reminded me of the 1950s Barbie, at the Wanderlust studio in Hollywood. And I was there early because I walked over from the Roosevelt, where we were staying on Hollywood Boulevard. Talk about going from one extreme to the other. And I was telling her about we had been traveling, and about this year of yoga and trying to get a practice in every day, and how I had the day before, or no, well, anyway, in the transition from West Virginia to California, that I had to get one of my practices in at a gas station, which wasn't the most desirable location. And with all sincerity, she said to me, you're new to this, and so let me teach you that yoga is not all about the asana. She said it's not all about the physical work on the mat. And she said, so you can practice yoga as you're riding along, just by sitting and breathing and turning inward, and all of these things. And so it came back to me. I dusted that off because I could not physically look. I also learned about the ego this year on the mats, and I could have totally pushed myself and prolonged the injury and the suffering, but self-love, and that was more important. And so I took that time to heal, and there's still some pain. And then it was Sunday, because I didn't want to miss this last week. I didn't want to it's been such a long time since I've got to practice with Shauna, with her being off with the restaurant, and me being gone out of town. And anyway, I didn't want to end this without a practice with her. And so yeah, anyway, I felt, then that's when I discovered that I'm saying this all, and I'm in my head, I'm like, I didn't get my practice with Emily, who's my teacher. And interestingly enough, she was my student on Thursday. So that's a whole other lesson and something else to think about. And I'm going to try not to be sad that I didn't go to class this morning, because to be continued. So anyway, you see how the monkey mind works here. It's constantly going. But so I started to sit and list all the lessons, and there were some of them that were really important that I wanted to share with you. And I think I shared with you the other day about what I call the lotus pod, which was probably my biggest enlightenment moment in that first leg of my journey, which was when we all piled up into a ball, clenching, and then releasing. And we did that a couple times. And the last time I did it, I realized that I had lived most of my life tightly wound in this little ball, and in a vain attempt to protect myself. And the only thing that I was doing was keeping myself from living. And so that was a huge lesson to me. And I hope that that's something I can share with you in your life, that maybe you can see is like, how many walls are you putting up to protect yourself that's keeping you from living fully, and that we don't live fully until we fully bloom. So huge lesson, and it is how I end my practice as a teacher every time. The second big lesson that I learned and see, I had all these written down and now I can't access them, but was the importance of that community. And so I guess I'll say the second lesson was sometimes in your worst, through your worst experiences, the best things come. And so when we were out west and it was a traumatic moment and we lost all of the belongings that we had with us at that time, you know, and even though it felt superficial because they were just material things, it was a violation. Again, there was this trauma, but my son said as we drove away with nothing but the clothes on our back that sometimes all of the old has to be taken to make room for something new. And so take that with you. And from that experience, it brought us another opportunity as a couple with Neil and I that I did not think was possible. And so, yeah, life is tough and we go through these things, but sometimes beautiful things come from that. You know, it's, you know, there's all those things and the phoenix rises from the ashes. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that those things are said, and it's in those tough times that we find out what's most important. And so coming back and then becoming part of this community that really held me through that time, you know. And it really is the truest sense of community that I've experienced. And I'm a huge community person, and I love the community that we're in. And when I'm talking about community in this sense, I'm not just talking about the LifeSpring Yoga community, because as what they were showing me at the same time, my Ruffner community was showing me as well. And it's like when you give people the space to be who they really are, and the support, if they're not sure, to find who they really are and then express that, it adds so many layers and depth and brings something so special. And, you know, it's what I've seen there, and it's what I've seen there, and it's what I'm a part of in both places. And if you don't have that, seek that. And I've already said that earlier, talking about community. Seek that, sustain that, create that. Like, I cannot say enough about the importance of that. And it's really people just being authentic. Like, even if they're struggling, going through that journey of finding who they really are, I don't know, there's just something beautiful about holding each other up, just like you guys did with me today. Like, that was just amazing. And to be able to be vulnerable enough to do so, because so many times we don't feel safe to be honest and transparent, which has not been, and I've this is another lesson I've learned. Not everybody has that ability. It's, you know, it's something that is part of who I am. But that when you do find these people that you can be that way with, and the other part of that is something that I learned with Hani this weekend at the Moment of Mindfulness workshop. So like people who attended that, they might not have heard this, but the gentleman was talking about patience. And what he was saying was that a lot of times we are so impatient in the process with ourselves or with others, especially with others, that we don't let them feel safe to go through the process of growth for themselves. And so when we are patient and we exude patience, we give them that security and safety net, and even the propulsion that they need, because it helps them be aware of it. I mean, so many lessons can come from just that, what I learned the other day, and that they need that. And if not, we're hindering their process as well. So there was that other light bulb moment. I didn't think I was going to talk about that one because that's kind of more current, but it was important because that's part of being in that community. But another lesson that I learned is that two fires do not always make an inferno. So Joe Neenan, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, so now I'm all over the place. So now you cannot guess where I'm talking about, which is good because I want to keep this professional as well. But Joe Neenan knew Emily and I separately before we knew each other, and that was one of the things that he said, because if you know us, we're feisty. We're quite fiery creatures. But that if, you know, we mellow each other out. We really balance each other out, and that what a observation that must be for others who knew us beforehand. So two fires do not always make an inferno. And then to trust. So I have known Joe Neenan since the beginning of this journey, and you hear me talk about him all the time. what a wonderful soul he is, and I love him and his wife Beecher. I have a huge yoga family, but so let me say this. I did not know him when I first started, obviously, and there came a day that it was just he and I wrote about this. I wrote about this back when it happened, and I got there early for class, and he could just tell, and it was right after that moment that I had, it was the very next week after I had that enlightenment moment about being wound up in a ball. And I got there early, and nothing ever happens on accident. And he could sense that there was something wrong. And so I had been having maybe a problem in the shoulders. And so this is when, he started talking to me about, we really hold on to things. And we tend to hold them in our shoulders and our hips, balls of the feet, all these places that now I know. But this is early in my journey. And so he said, if I can, so he's a massage therapist as well. And so he does a little Tapoma massage on me. And, I have not had the most, this is going to get sticky how I'm going to say this, positive experiences with unknown males in my life. And so, I've shared about the Me Too, and, you just never know with a person where you're going to go. And so the lesson I learned that day was to give trust a second chance. And I trusted that I didn't get any and none of my antennas were up in this situation, and instead of running from it, I trusted it, and immediately I knew that I could trust him, and he's been a huge significant part of my yoga journey, and those are his words constantly if you've been in a class with him. The yoga journey, it's all about the yoga journey, but he cared for me that day in a way that brought so much healing. Emotional at that point, saying that he may never understand, but he took care of me. He took care of the shoulder. He put me in a supported legs at the wall, just never forget. And then he left me there for a little bit because I needed that time and space to absorb all of that goodness and a shift in my perspective of men, to be honest. So thank you, Joe Neenan. Huge lessons have been learned over the last 365 days, and I can't help but get overwhelmed with emotion every time I start to talk about them and the people that it has brought into my life. So it may not be yoga for you, but it is important that you start seeking that healing out, because it is possible within. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I may not have known it at the beginning, and I've been probably taught this for years and years and years, but that when you begin to walk the path, it will unfold, and it may not unfold in the most sensible time and in what our expectation is. I guess just say that it will always be timely and it will always make sense, but you can trust that the people and the places and the tools that you need will come if you're open, and that's where the big if you're open to it. And I had no idea what I was getting into when I started this journey 365 days ago. No idea. And I was, like I said, not in the right headspace. No, I'm not gonna say I wasn't in the right headspace. I was where I was when I started, and it's what brought me there to begin with. But to commit to 30 days and then 2 weeks and commit to 1 year. Did I really know that I was going to sustain that for 365 days? Not a clue. Were there days that I didn't want to get up and do this? Absolutely. And there's still some days that I'm like, oh my gosh, I've committed to being there at 8:30 in the mornings, and some mornings I just want to come home. But it is a constant reminder to me that I could practice. There's so many other classes throughout the day, but if I would rather it be what starts and sets the tone for my day, and then if I want to go back later on, I can go back later on. And sometimes I do that. So that was one of the questions that somebody had asked is, did I complete 365 practices? My answer is, I forget at what point over the summer that I quit paying attention. It was, some to do with what the lady at the Wanderlust said, and some to do with what I was going on in my personal life. But I don't know. I'm sure that there were more than 365 practices done this year. Were they done every day consecutively? Probably not. I can think of a couple times that, you know, almost a whole week went by that I didn't have a physical practice in. But when you're in teacher training, sometimes you get 3 practices in on a week, on a Saturday, and a couple in on a Sunday. So, to my answer to that is, it does not matter. Yes and no, but it doesn't matter and it does. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. So, but what I can tell you is that the change and the transformation occurred, and it was a consistent in my life. And so I'm going to pause there, because what I want to share at this point goes into something else that I learned today. And I just kind of feel like I need to process that a little more. And not only that, but I feel like it will definitely take us into this next year of yoga. So I just really want to thank all of you who have supported me along this journey and encouraged me and like tuned in and asked the questions. And, you know, it's so much more. It's so much more than that 24x72 mats, and throwing yourselves into postures. And it has, so, you know, I don't talk about my personal beliefs a lot, because each of us believe a little differently. And, but I do believe that spirituality is a key part in our human experience. As a matter of fact, it's so crucial. It's part of our reptilian brain, where we, you know, autonomic nervous system, where we breathe and where our heart beats and all of those things are taken care of. That's where the spirituality center resides. So, it is definitely important, and that this year has taken me to a place, in that journey for myself, that I just don't know, that I could have gotten without the daily practice. And so I just encourage you. So whatever it is, if it's just getting started in meditation, something where you can just quiet and go and do, some of you I know feel like this is all, as Kat said today, woo-woo stuff. That's fine. I probably would have felt that way. Well, not probably. I'm sure, not sure. I did at some point think the same thing, and totally looked at yoga 20 years ago and 15 years ago and 10 years ago and probably even 5 years ago as a form of exercise. But go do the research on meditation and the benefits scientifically that it has medically for your health and all of those things. And maybe that's where you start. So maybe it's not what I've done, and your journey's not going to be the same as mine, and the toolbox that you have and you create for your life is going to be different than mine. But even if it's just sitting for 1 minute, and that's the challenge that I give all of my beginners that come to meditation, is 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute in the evening. So if you make a space where you're going to do this at, and bed might not be the best place to do it, because in the evening you might fall asleep. So, but just to quiet the mind. So people think that meditation has to be like the ceasing of thoughts. That's not what it is. Go do the research, and maybe we'll talk about that at another time. But just to give yourself the space to allow the ego, the personality, who you think that you are, to set to the side, so that you can start to discover who you were created to be without getting too preachy. So much, much, much love to all of you guys. This has been a journey for sure, and it has had everything that you would expect for a good tell to have. And it was very stressful for me a little bit to think about what I was going to talk about, and I felt like I wasn't given enough time, and I've been rambling today for a while, but that's, you know, I didn't start coming live again till last week. And then I started to realize that it's not all for here. So that's exciting as well, because that means that there are other avenues that this information will come. And so you never know where things are going to take you. But one of the other lessons that I have learned is that when the light keeps shining down the same path, you better pay attention. You better pay attention. You better start walking that direction. So I see it. I see it, and I'm moving that way. But I cannot thank you guys enough for hanging in there with me, and you know, because I hope that you get some of what I'm saying. And so again, it doesn't have to be the way that I've done it, but maybe it'll inspire you to find your own path of getting there. And again, it's a journey of a lifetime. So, you know, it's not going to end, which was very exciting, or at least helped me today move beyond that this has to be it, because it is ongoing. But again, if you are interested, you can join me in the morning at 8:30. I would love to have you come and celebrate with me. I have no idea what I have planned. I mean, I have a sequence planned that I want to teach, but I don't think that we have anything other planned than that. But just to you know, it really is. It's this community, and I'd like for you to be part of it. So much, much love to you all. Legs out.